Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Pink Turns Purple. It's Hershey, me, your girl, Miss Jennifer Pink, and I'm so excited that you are back joining us for another amazing Thriver chat. Remember, we're calling them chats, not interviews anymore. I switched the title. But before we get into today's chat, I want to remind you to share this video with a friend. If you have a friend that you know that a piece of this video will resonate with them, hit that share to a friend button. It's up above. Of course, I want to encourage you to make sure you encourage your friends to register for Pink Turns Purple at bit.ly/Pink Turns Purple. It is completely free. We just really want to make sure that this message gets out, that people really truly heal and begin to thrive. It's time to live our best life, like the song says, but I'm not going to sing the song. But y'all know what I'm talking about. We are joined today by Thriver Rhachelle. Rhachelle, say hi.
Hello.
Before we get into talking with Rhachelle, I want to let you know a little bit about who she is. Rhachelle Nicol is a mother, author, writer, speaker, and advocate. For over 20 years, she has worked with abused and neglected children, juvenile delinquents, and high-risk families to reunify, redirect, and assist with accessing resources to function at their highest level, lending her voice to those who may feel powerless or overlooked while giving them the tools to spread their message. She is the proud owner of RN Brand and Design, a transparent brand. She spreads the message of her brand, I show my scars so that others know they can heal, to enlighten her community about domestic violence and mental illness and the effects both can have on the individual suffering, their family, and the community at large. Now, that quote has brought reassurance to her and thousands of other women who have embraced it. Rhachelle Nicol went on to use her t-shirts to brand her message, and a movement was born. Both Erica Campbell and Tina Campbell of the Grammy Award-winning group Mary Mary have appeared on television wearing the t-shirt. I have received many emails from young women who have been victims of domestic violence or just life in general, thanking me for my transparency and sharing my story. If I can empower women to leave an abusive situation or share their story to increase awareness, then I will continue to show my scars, Rhachelle Nicol is quoted as saying. So, hey, Rhachelle.
Hello.
But okay, so let's just jump right into it. What is your domestic violence story?
Well, mine started off way before I even knew what domestic violence really was. And I guess you can say I was probably kind of groomed to become a victim in some ways, some shape or form. I grew up in a very Christian home. My mother was a missionary. My dad was a pastor. But my mother also suffered from bipolar disorder. And, 40 years ago, I'm almost 40, but, 40 years ago, there wasn't a term really. You didn't hear much about bipolar disorder and how it showed up in people. And so you also come from a generation that they get married and that's it. They stay married, So I watched my dad suffer through a lot of emotional and verbal abuse, and also just me and my siblings being physically dealt with at times, and also the emotional and verbal abuse. So I learned from an early age to kind of like shield myself and kind of guard myself from my mother. I was the one that was always wanted to be independent. My parents were very successful business owners, and I wanted my own job. I wanted my own money. I felt like if I had everything that I needed, I couldn't be controlled by anyone, basically. So I was always strong-willed and strong-minded, but that emotional and verbal abuse that I dealt with as a child, it kind of, I guess you could say, it taught me what not to allow and what not to accept. So those patterns of behavior, soon when I became an adult and entered into one of my first real serious relationships, it led to me overlooking a lot of things. And some of those red flags turned into me just wanting to be there for someone and, be that shoulder, or I felt like I could fix the situation. After watching my dad suffer through 30 years of marriage, you know what I mean? I felt like that was the thing to do. You suffer through. You know what I mean? You grow together. There's going to be some hard times, but it got to the point where the cycles of abuse. You know, and it wasn't until I actually got out that I realized what I had been dealing with when I was trying to pick up the pieces. You know, my first attempt at even walking away from the relationship, actually I wasn't trying to walk away. I was just trying to get out of it by any means necessary. I can remember the day I was done. I was tired. I was fed up, and no one at this point knew what I had been going through. So I can recall him coming home, and I was just done. And I remember grabbing a bottle of pills and taking them one by one. And he was going to leave me there for dead. He was still calling me out of my name, telling me how worthless and pointless I was, all the while packing his stuff and literally going to leave. And I don't even know what happened next. All I know is that I guess he called my mother, speaking very negative of me, as if my mother was going to join in the bandwagon, because basically throughout the course of this relationship, I would end up back and forth between leaving my home that I was paying the bills in to stay with my mother because of the treatment, and then only to be treated even worse by her at times, or being jumped on by my mother, and I would end up back trying to fix things with him. And so it wasn't by the grace, but what wasn't but by the grace of God that my mother from her home called the ambulance. And the only thing I remember is waking up to my mother being on the side of the hospital bed. They had pumped my stomach, and I don't know how long I had been out or what have you, but my stomach was pumped. And I woke up to my mother letting me know that she had been praying, and I was still kept here alive, which I'm grateful and thankful for. But even still with that, you know, my family, I had to go to a 48-hour surveillance or what have you. But even after that, my family went on as if it was just another day in the life, just a normal, you know what I mean? Everything went back to normal. And maybe a year later, I remember packing up my things. I packed a suitcase and my 3 children and boarded a bus. And I moved and relocated with my oldest 3 children and one on the way to Las Vegas. I was done. I needed to get away. I wanted to start all over, and didn't realize that I couldn't move away from my issues because there were still baggage that I was carrying. And it was in Las Vegas that process of going through those moments of just being alone and having to deal with life and figure things out, that I realized what I had endured for a good portion of my life, even not in a relationship, and then had been in dealing with for 8 years. And it was during that time that I literally asked God, show me my heart, show me the things that I'm holding on to, the things that I'm, need to release in order to live the life that I know that I'm deserving of. It was as if everything that I was going on internally was beginning to manifest itself in the physical aspect of my life. So with that, I began writing, and I took to blogging. And while I was writing and trying to find my way back to Rhachelle, I also began writing my first memoir, Sunday Morning. And so through that process, that helped me release a lot of the shame and the guilt that I had carried for so long. And that also gave birth to the I Show My Scars movement. And it really allowed me to get to the core of that stuff. You know what I mean? When you allow other people to speak into your life and tell you who you are when you know otherwise, you have to go back and undo a lot of the damage that it causes. So I was in that process of undoing it. And even now, I'm still releasing some of those things that I didn't know that, make you think that you can only go so far. So as we continue to grow, we realize other ideas or ideologies that people have put upon us that limit us in some forms of life. So to continue to move forward as a thriver, I am constantly making myself aware of those issues or areas of concern where I can grow in. And that keeps me moving forward, and being very aware of who I am and what I'm capable of, continues to push me forward as well. So as I grow and learn new things, I make sure that I implement them along the way, just to continue on that path. And there's so much more, but that's the short form.
Well, I mean, even in the short form, I think you definitely gave us a different picture than what we've gotten in all the other stories. And that's, sometimes we don't see a way out. Like, you're like, I don't see how I can just walk out the door, or, like you were trying to get out. You go to your mom's house and then there's abuse there. So then you come back and it's that back and forth type thing. So you're just like, I just want to end it all. Like I'm done. And I think that is a very real thing. And I think a lot of people who experience abuse, that's an option to them, and so I'm grateful that you're still here, because, you're an amazing woman that's in my life, and, you've helped me in so many different ways, but because you're able to tell that story, because there's a woman right now that contemplated that or is contemplating that. And maybe she's going to think twice about it. Maybe she's not going to do it. Maybe she's going to understand maybe she's going to become grateful that it didn't work, so to speak, because of your story. So I thank you for that. But you talked a little bit about you had to look within and figure out what you were still holding on to, and figure out how to really let it go. Why was that so important for you?
Because those things that I was holding on to were unforgiveness. I didn't want to forgive. I felt like everyone owed me an apology, and we can wait forever to try to get an apology that we never receive. And that doesn't mean that we can't go on and move on with our lives. So I had to learn how to forgive someone that was never going to give me an apology. And that someone also was myself. I had to forgive myself for the years of treatment that I allowed myself to even endure or be part of, thinking that I could fix someone. So I think forgiving myself was the hardest person to forgive in all of this, because I had to recognize my role into it. And that's another way that I was able to change that from that victim to thriver, acknowledging my role that I had played, even in allowing people to treat me in such a manner that I didn't see fit for my own life. When you set a standard for the way you want to be treated, and you backstep or you go backwards in allowing people to treat you otherwise, you put yourself in a position where you do have to forgive yourself. Because before, like I said, I had been in relationships, this was right out of college. So I had been in relationships while I was in college, but I never allowed anyone to treat me in such a manner, and so when I found myself picking up the pieces of my life, I had to really acknowledge, the place that I was in, that even opened myself up to that kind of behavior. And I had to vow to never allow myself to go back there. And the shame, and the guilt, I had to release all of that, because you can't live the life that you want to live holding on to such negative baggage. Because it was showing up in everything. We watch the reality shows and we see the arguments, we see the fights, but we don't see the behind the scenes of what really is going on in their lives. And sometimes when we dig a little deeper, you'll notice, like, I've been able to pick up certain personalities and behaviors sometimes and women are rooted in what they're dealing with behind the scenes that no one really knows about. And I didn't want to be that person any longer. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be the one at work that can become snappy because I just left arguing, at home and taking it out on somebody that has no idea of what I'm going through. So I had to I had to learn how to let that stuff go. You know what I mean? I even learned it in my job. I learned how to leave the door and walk in and make the most of my day and leave what I was going through at home. But it got to the point where I was still carrying baggage. So I wanted to get rid of the baggage, not have to put on a different face on any given day, but actually remove the baggage so I can just show up as me.
Right. And what you said is so true. Like, we can go our entire lives waiting for the apology that we are owed. Like, let's not even say we feel we're owed, because let's just be honest, we're owed an apology for something that people have done to us. Like, I can give you a list, right?
Right.
You need to apologize for this, and you need to apologize for that, and then you over there need to apologize for it. Like, we all have that list. And when you hold on to it and you're waiting and waiting, and we're like, oh, you know, I'm living my life, and you're still going to work and you're still feeding the kids, we think we're moving on. But deep down on the inside, we stuck, and we're stuck.
Exactly.
Just stuck. And like she said, it comes out in other ways. It comes out when you're at work and you just snap on somebody. It comes out when you're just petty all the time. It comes out when you're angry all the time. When you know, somebody looks at you, and maybe they're looking at you because you got on a nice dress, and you like, what you looking at? Whoa. Right. I was just gonna say that was a nice dress, but never mind, because it's not so cute anymore. And I think, especially us as women, like, we have to deal with that, because we don't even recognize how it's affecting us, because we have conditioned ourselves. You know, as long as I'm able to keep walking, as long as I'm able to feed the kids, as long as I'm able to survive, then I'm okay. And there's a whole nother
realizing it can be easier when we let all that go. You know what I mean? Like, every day doesn't become a battle when we learn how to let it go. We think that holding on to it gives us some kind of supernatural strength, when in actuality, it weakens us. It weakens us little by little by little, until we don't even know who we are. And that's what I was tired. I was tired of living a life of being a person that I no longer knew. I was never that person. You know what I mean? I was always, even reconnecting some of my college mates, you know what I mean? Being known as that person that was always there, caring, thoughtful, you know what I mean? Giving you the last. And then being transformed by a relationship. I wanted to, reconnect with me. Baggage had to go.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So as you began to let go of that baggage and really forgive others and really forgive yourself, and I think the big reason why we don't forgive others is because then we have to start looking at ourselves. You know, if I let go of them as the evil guy, then I have to start looking at myself a little bit. But as you begin to let go of those things and really begin to move away from that stuck space, what did you notice within yourself?
I noticed, that my dreams, I no longer had to put my dreams on the back burner, because I gained more confidence in myself again and rediscovering what I was passionate about. During a lot of that time, my focus was on trying to make someone happy that could not be made happy. You know what I mean? And happiness, I wasn't responsible for his happiness. So much of my life I had put on hold. So I realized, wait a minute, I do love writing. You know what I mean? I do love designing and creating. I do love, everything that I had put on the back burner, everything that it seems like he would resurface in my life at points that I was doing exactly what I loved. You know what I mean? And so I had to go back and retrace those steps. Like, wait a minute, I do love doing this. I did love doing this. Why did I stop? And I had to really become aware of those times that I was doing everything that I loved, those times that I was enjoying life, those times I was living life to the fullest. That's when he would show back up. So I had to, I was discovering me all over again, my joys, my passions, my strengths outside of carrying baggage, you know what I mean, that I was in. And I realized I am unstoppable, and, I just moved forward. Like some of my goals have been there for years, you know what I mean? But when you're constantly told that you're nothing, and won't be anything, and nobody likes you because of this. And it's like, no, people just don't like me because I'm with you. You know what I mean? So it became a process of having to shed that.
Exactly. So before we completely close out, because I think we've like hit all the points, but before we close out, I want to give you the opportunity, if there is anything on your heart, anything that you just, something tugging at you that you feel like you need to share in this moment for the man or woman that's watching, that is stuck in that survival space. They're like, I've survived. I'm making it every day, but they're just stuck there. Whatever it is on your heart to share with them, I want to give you an opportunity to share.
I will say that one of my biggest fears from moving forward was I didn't know what was ahead of me. And if you can remember who you were prior to, hold on to that. Hold on to that, because you're still that person. Regardless of what you've been going through or what you've been facing, you are still the person that you were before this all began. And you will still be that person, and even better after. There's someone else, just like you may have been waiting to hear my story. There's someone else waiting to hear your story and see how you've made it through. At times it may be confusing. At times it may feel lonely. At times it may feel like I should have just stayed. Just know that it will get better. It's going to get better, and you will be better once you get through it. And that's one main reason why I always show my scars, because we never know what someone else is going through. We never know what someone is dealing with. We never know where they're at along their journey. And so I always want to constantly, share parts of my journey as I continue to move forward with my own life, to let the people know, don't stop. You know what I mean? It may get a little crazy at times. It may be a little fearful at times, but reach out to someone that you know that you can trust and that will walk that journey with you. I had my business partner, he's in Atlanta, but he would constantly be that nudge. You have too much inside of you to stop now. You got to get back up. You got to keep going. You got to move forward. Find that person, that that can tell you who you are in spite of, and hold on to that, because you are that person. And don't let anyone ever try to convince you otherwise.
Exactly. I love that. I really love that. And I've heard all the different things that have been on the Thrivers Hearts, but that just, I guess it spoke to me in a different way. Because, we sometimes we forget that it's going to be hard, and we forget that it is lonely sometimes, and we forget that it's trying, and we forget that, you have those moments like, well, was it the right thing to leave? Maybe it was better over there. But when we hear somebody tell us that we're worthy, that there's way too much greatness within us, that tomorrow will be better, it pushes you on, and it pushes you just a little bit further. And so I'm just so appreciative that you shared that with us. At this time, I want to again thank you for joining me for Pink Turns Purple.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy and excited to see all this unfold.
What most people don't know is Rhachelle is the reason behind Pink Turns Purple. So I'm going to put her on blast, and I'm going to let everybody know right now that she is the reason behind this. She was adamant, I think over a month, that I do this. And I was like, I don't talk about domestic violence. That's just a part of my story that we don't talk about. And she's like, no, you need to do this. And she's like, you have to do this, because what you stand for is so much greater and so much more, and people need this. So if you have been blessed by Pink Turns Purple, you can thank that lady right there. But thank you so much. For those of you that are watching, don't go too far, because another Thriver will be in your inbox soon. We are down to the final countdown. There's one or two, maybe three left, not quite sure, but we are down to the final countdown. So stay tuned, because I want you to get all of the juiciness to the very end. But until next time, it is her, she, me, your girl, Mission for Pink, and that is Rhachelle, and we are saying bye-bye.
Bye-bye.